All right, today we're going to talk about what expenses are eligible to be paid for by the SBA EIDL Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Hi, guys. That was a mouthful of acronyms and a bit of a fun introduction to do for me. Not sure why I'm laughing about it. Probably because I had to think really hard just to use the acronyms. I recently got a question from Charles who asked me what expenses are eligible to be paid for by the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. I did a better job the second time around. Not only did I get the question from Charles, but just yesterday, I got a private message from a gentleman on Twitter who was asking me the same questions, and we had a bit of an exchange. So before I go into which expenses are eligible for the program, I'm just going to remind you of what this program is, and I'm also going to talk about the differences between this program and the PPP program, right? So I just want to cover all those things, clarify a lot of stuff for everyone. So the SBA EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, is not new. The PPP program was new as a response by the government, U.S. government, for the economic downturn due to the coronavirus and to help keep companies alive during that period. And if you catch, the PPP acronym includes paycheck protection in the acronym. The idea there was to protect jobs of employees and things like that. The EIDL has been around for a long time, and its basic premise was to help companies that have been impacted by a disaster of some sort, typically a natural disaster, right? So if a hurricane comes through an area, I know we got, what is it, Hurricane Laura right now that's has hit the U.S. coast down in the Gulf. If that hurricane creates enough challenges for the area, the SBA can then give out SBA EIDL loans to help companies, businesses, small businesses in the area to survive until things can kind of get cleaned up and get back to normal. So the EIDL program is not new. It's been around for a while. That loan program makes low interest loans to small businesses that have been impacted by natural disasters and things similar to it. When I say low interest rates, we're talking about 3.75% is the current rate for a for-profit entity and 2.75% for a nonprofit entity. Now, here in a second, I'm going to do some comparisons for you about the differences between the EIDL and the PPP. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in it. Expenses that can be covered by an EIDL program do cross over, right? They cross over with some of the PPP expenses. So it can get a little bit confusing. I'm going to link to the SBA's guidance on the EIDL because this is changing as it tends to do with SBA programs almost daily. As a matter of fact, yesterday I saw an article about some changes to the forgiveness of PPP loans, and not a few days ago I posted a video about that. So this changes. So you can only take my word as good for a couple of days, and you at least need to go verify this for yourself. So what expenses can be covered by the EIDL program? The first that is listed is what the SBA calls fixed debts. These aren't variable debts like purchasing inventory and things like that. These are fixed debts, which would include things like rent. You have a rent payment that's due every single month. It's the same amount. It's a fixed amount. You can use it for that. Here's where it starts to get confusing. You can use the EIDL program for payroll. What did I say the PPP was designed for? For payroll, right? So we're starting to cross over some expenses. You can use, and this one is different from the PPP, you can use it for accounts payable. Accounts payable are just bills that you owe to other suppliers. So if you make a widget and you buy parts from another supplier to make that widget, and they allow you to wait 15, 30, 90 days to make your payment, that becomes what's called an accounts payable on your records. And so you can use the EIDL program to cover accounts payable, and that is not necessarily specifically covered in the PPP program. Even more confusing, the last bullet point in this resource for the EIDL says that you can use it for other expenses that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. And that is what the gentleman was asking me about in our private messages on Twitter. He wants to take out an EIDL loan and use it for a lot of other expenses. And I told him, you got to be careful. His whole comment was, well, how are they going to know what I use the money for? Well, the SBA can audit you just like the IRS can. They can ask for your financial statements and see where you spent the money. So you got to be careful. We don't want to lie to a government agency, but it is leaving a little bit of gray area with this could have been paid, right, had the disaster not occurred. So that's leaving it a little bit vague. Sometimes it's easy to clarify what something cannot be used for versus what it can be used for. So here's where the EIDL program cannot be used. It can't be used for dividends or bonuses. It can't be used for owner distributions unless a part of the payment is for performance. So if you're acting as almost like an employee, you cannot use the EIDL to repay an owner's loan. So sometimes owners, whether for tax purposes or some other reason, will make a loan to the business. You can't repay yourself that way. You cannot use an EIDL for expansion of facilities or to buy fixed assets like equipment, okay? So if you're gonna do that, you need to go ahead and get a traditional 7A loan, which are still being made. You cannot use an EIDL to refinance long-term debt or existing SBA loans. So this would be a brand new loan for being impacted by a disaster, which includes the coronavirus, and you can apply for that. So again, you'll notice the crossover with PPP loans, and I plan on doing a video for you that sort of talks about when to use one versus the other. It's not always an either or situation. Oftentimes for a lot of businesses, it was to get both. So keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about the differences between the two programs that I can tell so far. So PPP loans were made. I said were made because you can't not apply for them right now. They stopped accepting applications on August 8th. PPP loans were made at 1% interest versus the 3.75% interest on the EIDL loan. You apply for PPP loans through an approved SBA lender, which would be a bank or a credit union. The EIDL loan applications go directly to the SBA. I'll also put the link to where you can file for that in the notes. Here's one of the kickers. EIDL loans are still being offered as of yesterday when I looked. They were still accepting applications. Again, the PPP program is not accepting applications right now. Check out my other video about how another round could be coming. PPP loans are meant to be used for payroll, mortgage, and lease payments and utilities. You'll notice that was not something that was listed. Some of those categories were not listed like utilities in the EIDL loan. The payback period for a PPP loan is shorter than the EIDL. The EIDL can be a loan that's up to 30 years, okay? So we're talking about a longer payback period. With the EIDL, you can get an immediate advance on your loan of $10,000. They'll just put it right in your account. Matter of fact, the gentleman messaging me yesterday, did you like that sound effect? The gentleman messaging me yesterday said he applied for an EIDL and he had $10,000 put right in his bank account almost immediately. So they'll give you an advance. The PPP does not do that. PPP loan proceeds are limited to a multiplier of your average payroll. EIDL loans can be up to $2 million. So we're talking about, for most businesses, more money than your average multiplier of your payroll. So lots of differences between the structure, or what I call the terms, of these loans. They can be used often for similar purposes. It does not mean that you should apply for one or the other. Even if a second round of PPP comes available and you have not gone and gotten your EIDL loan, it might be worth go ahead and applying for an EIDL anyways. I hope that information helps you. If you have questions, put them in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe so you can get this kind of content delivered directly to your inbox. And as always, I hope you find your voice. Have a great day.